My name is Milford Johnson, and I've been fishing here for about 60 years. People that came out just to enjoy the island in summer, of course, they'd always come later than a fisherman would. And we had an awful lot of summer, or people that came here in summer that owned their own island and had their summer home. And the fishermen, of course, they were mostly squatters, the fishermen. They would, wherever there was a good bay and a good place to put up a shack, there you'd find a fisherman.
In the summer of 1975, Peter Edison and Milford Johnson and his wife Myrtle were the last of the old-time fishermen still at Isle Royale. Their method of fishing, once common on Lake Superior, is now considered historic.
We usually get up around 6 o'clock in the morning, get our breakfast, take off out on the lake to lift the nets, come home at about noon, measure the fish, and get them all weighed up, put away, iced up. Then it's to come at the house and get your meals ready, clean up the place a little bit. If we put in some nets, we'll go out and wash them, get them reeled up. So it's busy from the time you get up in the morning until you go to bed at night.
Oh, it's changed a great deal from sailboats to motorboats. And of course, it was a good deal harder work in them days than we have now. We didn't have the motorboats or net lifters. If the wind wasn't blowing, we had to row. And of course, we were all wishing for wind then, which we don't now, you know. Sailboats were up to 26 feet long, some of them, and a good deal wider. They had 2 spars and a gaff rig, and of course 2 pair of oars went with it too. When it wasn't blowing, you rowed them. We'd pull hand over hand on 600 feet of water, so it was a lot more work in the earlier days. The net itself sits right on the bottom, just like a fence would be ashore. And every 6 feet there's a sinker. And above this sinker is a plastic net float, where in the olden days we used cedar floats. They didn't have the plastic. But one week, and they were shot, you know, water soaked right through. And next came the aluminum float. And some were just as flat as a pancake, you know, the pressure of the water just flattened them. And the third, the plastic floats. If they didn't break, they last indefinitely. The net is weighted with lead. 3 would run about a pound, and they're spaced right below each float and about 6 feet apart. They're down to 60 feet, and a float keeps them at that level. You have their distance from your float to the net, see, measured off. And it keeps them at that level. And when you raise them, you just shorten the line from the float to the net. And those are anchored offshore here about a mile, and they're anchored in 600 feet of water. The anchors go down that deep, but the net is floated. If you fish them early in the spring, you have them down about 16 fathom, and as the season goes on, you lift them up to about 2 fathom. Would start rowing out to there, and that's in the wind. Before you got out to the outer end, you had to always pick these nets with the wind, you know, so it wouldn't be so hard. You couldn't pull them into the wind because the boat was sideways. Before you get to the outer end, sometimes you were all in. When you got a hold of the buoy there, you wish you were home. Oh boy, and then you had to start your work. Pull it up and start picking. And when you're through with that, you have about half a ton of that stuff, and then roll back. Oh boy, those days were tough, I'll tell you. They weren't like now. We never had an outboard. It was just oars for those skiffs. We prepare the fish after we get back. First thing you do, you have to unload them, of course, and pull them up to the scale. These fish have to be weighed before they're cleaned, and after that's done, she takes the fish out of the box and she measures it, And she hands it over to me, and I clean it, back split. The heads come off, the knife follows right along the backbone, and cleaned, then washed in a tank, scooped out of there, drained good, and then iced. And we have to sex it till whether it's a male or female, and then these are weighed again when they're dressed. Then you have to take scale samples of each one, the length of it, where it's caught, what depth of water, and all those things. In the olden days, you could have cleaned and prepared at half a ton. The time it takes now to get 500 or 600 pounds ready.
Male?
Male.
Huh?
Yeah. Whatever it was, male.